So today we're looking at the German wire cutters, large type. The German word for these things is Drahtschere, which just means wire cutters. Lange, if you're looking for this particular type. If you want to ever get Google reference, that's a really good way, is to know the German words for things. So that's how I find a lot of it. This particular one we'll look at, it's missing certain things, but I wanted to look at mine, and then some really good pictures of better conditioned ones, and then I actually want to check previous models of my own to point out really common mistakes that people make, at least I think so. Anytime I go to shows, that's one of the first things I notice. So I'd shared some of this with some people who started talking about it, even on YouTube. So I figured I would just go over all the stuff that I have gotten from owning one and just really looking into it in depth. So the first thing that most people think about when they are doing these on a model is what color is it. So this particular one is in pretty rough shape. It's also quite deteriorated in the handles. So let's talk about the materials that it's made out of, because that's actually quite important. So most people, when they do it, they go, metal color, and then it seems to be that the general consensus is red from here to there. Now this is not original coloring. Well, there's some here, which I'll point out to you in a second, but so this is what metal looks like when it's really old and deteriorated, so that part's usually correct. Dark, not shiny metal. So this one, you can see that it's steel here, and then all the way through here up until these caps. This little ring around here, I actually think this thing may be made out of wood, because if you look at it, it even looks like a piece of it's kind of chipped out. It's flaking away. So I'm not positive what it's made out of. I wish I did know. I don't like not giving information, but it does look different than the steel does. You can see that it stands off from it. You've got a bit of grain there. It could be really scraped up Bakelite, but it also could be wood. Yeah, I can't tell. Honestly, I'm not gonna try scraping at it to figure it out, but it could be Bakelite. So, or if you want to say it, Bakelite in German. So these are Bakelite. This is steel through here, and then it's coated in compressed paper, layer upon layer of paper, sort of like kind of paper mache, but not really. I met a really nice reenactor who had restored a pair, and he tried explaining it to me, and I didn't really understand it, but I can take you in and show you more closely what it looks like. So if you have the steel rods that run through here, and then you cover the handles in this layer after layer after layer of paper, now you also get those two big rings that are normally here and here. Those are also made out of paper, so those deteriorate in the same way, whereas this never does. Like I said, not sure what it's made out of, but so here you can see a really good example of what happens to the paper as it wears away. So the layers underneath the outer part, which is a reddish color, people are correct when they do that. It's basically just like stained, dated, almost like parchment color. It's basically blondish colored. So as the layers go down, it tends to get lighter and lighter and lighter. You'll notice this in pictures that I'm showing, as well as pictures you may find of them. As they wear, like the edge wear on these wire cutters would be almost like a yellowish paper color. So this right here is the actual color that they were when they were made. So it would make the most sense to paint them if you're doing a model of one. You can see it's like a brownish red, and people have it pretty close on. I think I go a little too red with mine, because it kind of has like a marbly texture in it, which would be really hard to get in 35th because they're so small. But you can see it chips out there, and I have very little of that original color left. So while we're down here, we'll look at these caps, which are just Bakelite caps, which are kind of a reddish and darker brown, like a much richer brown. See that right there? They also have a high specular highlight, so they're glossy when they're new. I don't know that they would be terribly shiny, but comparatively to the paper and the steel, they're actually quite glossy. But so they're this really rich reddish brown, whereas these caps differ from this, which is more of like a muted red brown. So it's important to understand that my particular one, you can see that they actually wear down and get thinner here. Like this is almost just as thick as the steel, but as it gets to the back here where the original red is, that's the original width. So you can see that that's how this one aged. This one's in particularly bad shape. The metal is really rough. So you can also see on mine that right here, there used to be something that's not there. It's a small metal bar that's been welded in about that far, which when they're closed, you know, it connects and sort of presses into here, probably to keep it from closing too far. That might damage them in some way. So that's gone on this one as well. So mine's in pretty rough shape. I'm missing a lot of parts. While we're up here looking at the head of the thing, normally you'll see, let's see if I can make it out. I know it was originally on here. You'll have Wehrmacht stamping, you know, either here or here. Mine is rusted to the point where I can't actually even see it. So that's pretty much all there is to know about them. You know, steel color, a much softer red-brown, like desaturated red-brown, shiny, dark, barely red-brown, steel, compressed paper, Bakelite. Now, the Dragon ones that I'm about to look at with you don't ever include, they don't even have this thing. Plus, I was just talking with some people about the way that they are clamped in kits. So sometimes, and I think it's on soft skins especially, you'll see this type of clamp. I've seen it clamped between these two places, but on vehicles like Tiger and larger vehicles, it goes actually over this section here or in between these two. So I've seen both in plastic, but usually when it's here, it's the fork type, not this type. Now I've filmed yet not edited or uploaded my tool clamp video, so I might not be making a whole lot of sense to you yet, but you know, there's two types of clamps, the ones that go over and lip around, which is what this is, and the kind that have like a bar and a fork. So where the clamp should be on a particular kit, I think they get wrong sometimes because they've molded a few different types. But for the sake of this time, we're going with the other placement, which is down here. Here's my primary error that I see. So you don't have this as a marking point at all. So this is where the red should stop. Now what most people do when they paint the thing on a kit is, for the sake of demonstration, I will put this X-Acto knife where those two other cylinders go. So they're about, you know, here, right? So they're noticeable. And on the kits, they actually seem to be about the same size as these Bakelite caps in the back. So it goes large lump, thin cylinder, you know, this big cylinder bit here, and then it's just smooth like this on the kit. So everybody paints this metal color, and then they paint all of this metal color and this metal color. And if you're looking at this, you can probably see why that's a problem. Because here we still have compressed paper, and it should go everywhere up until this cylinder here. And that could suggest to me actually that maybe this is Bakelite and not steel, because this thing moves occasionally. If you look at different pictures of surviving examples that people have, this thing can kind of travel, so I think maybe it gets dislodged. I'm not sure how it's attached. If it is steel, it could be welded, but I don't know. So anytime I go to anywhere and see a model show, that's how people paint these things. So to prove my point, here is my Tiger 1 build from my Wittmann series, and you can see that I have done the exact thing that I'm talking about. I only paint the reddish color up until those two cylinder extrusions. I've also not painted the caps a darker brown, so that is, well, wrong. But it's roughly the right red-brown. That's an out-of-the-bottle Vallejo paint, so that's not too bad. But this mistake is everywhere. I see it all the time. So just to finish up, you know, here's some real close views of the actual material that they're made out of. Now mine, again, is super deteriorated and not really probably what you want to base your model on, unless you're like Adam Wilder and you just super dig really weathered stuff. But I'm even afraid to touch this because every time I pick the thing up, some of this paper flakes off. And so like that layer there, that's from the war, right? But these other layers that are starting to show are, you know, evidence of its deterioration. Having something that's paper is really, it makes me very nervous, because my new office where I'm recording this video, I've painted the walls, or I'm going to finish tomorrow and mount this on my wall like it would be on a tank. So I'm very afraid to touch it or even have it in a dry environment. But so if you really want to go overboard with weathering these things, that's what it would look like. And Bakelite, as it weathers, again, does this kind of crazy thing. This could be from a barn or a field, I don't know. If anybody's curious, you know, they do still function. I mean, I'm not going to go and try to cut anything with them, but But they're pretty interesting. Now, besides these guys, there's also the small wire cutters. Those are pretty much just carried by sappers. But now at least you know something about German wire cutters.